Hey everyone, how are we doing? Happy Thursday to you. Thank you so much for joining today. I'm Nick Bell, your product specialist for the day. Haven't done one of these in a little while, so if you hear any audio weirdness or anything weird at all, just let me know and I'll make some adjustments on the fly. But yeah, thank you so much for joining us today. So, what I was thinking about going over and doing today, kind of the home stretch of the going back to basics, if you will. So, if you're an avid Helix user and you know this product inside and out, this will be, probably mostly a review for you. But for those of us who are a little new to serial splits, serial paths, parallel paths, and also the different kind of split points we have. This will be pretty interesting for you, something to learn. So, taking a look at what we're going to be covering today, really just going to be starting off taking a look at really the basics here, right? The difference between a serial and a parallel path, and the benefits you can get with a parallel split. The different things you can do at the split and the merge points. But like I said, going back to basics here, but as we can see, a serial path is literally kind of what all of us guitar players are pretty used to, starting off with just a guitar going into an amp or maybe one or two pedals or, a full-on pedal board. We're kind of used to this basic idea of running your sound. Now with the parallel split, we're going to take a deeper look and see how we can split things up like reverbs and delays. Honestly, for myself, every time I use a reverb on a preset, I always put that reverb on a parallel path. That's something that I just do, that I like the sound of. But we'll take a look at the different applications on sometimes why it sounds better than others, and depending if you're playing chords or solos, whatever that may be. So we'll take a look at that, and then we'll kind of finish it off taking a look at the split options. Now, when we do a parallel split like we see here on the screen, we're used to this Y split where everything is evenly distributed to the A and the B path after that split. But we have a couple of different options, such as a split AB, where it's essentially like an AB box, so you can be on the A path or the B path and use a foot switch. And then we have crossover and dynamic. These are, really fun. I personally don't have a lot of uses for these, but you may find yourself needing, these kind of split options. And these really aren't areas that with the customers or with the users I speak to, these aren't really areas that it's kind of unknown territory, uncharted territory for most, this crossover and dynamic. But I'll show you some things that I have pre-baked, and maybe that could give you some ideas for your tone building. So enough of looking at this picture. Let's take a look at my HX edit. Today I'm using the Helix rack, and so I'm just running through a couple of Yamahas in my power cab, and let's take a look here. So what we're looking at here is your basic idea of a guitar tone. What I have here is just an overdrive, a Minotaur going into the Line 6 Litigator amp model, and then I'm running into a impulse response. I love impulse responses. This is off of our marketplace, the LRS, or Live Ready Sound, JP B-Man, if you could get an idea of who that may be. Who they're going after. I'm just going to resave it to a different IR that I like more. So taking a look here, after that I'm running into an LA Studio comp. I really didn't do much to the settings here other than drop the gain a bit. Honestly, any tone you have, if it's clean, if it's dirty, if it's metal, whatever it may be, running an LA2A after practically any amp, I think just opens it up, makes it sparkle, makes it sound really good. If you didn't catch Tony Campanovo's stream about 2 weeks ago or so, he was showing some really cool methods of using a compressor in front of your amp and after. And so you can get some really cool sounds doing this. And plus the LA2A, it was kind of designed like that. You'd be running into it after your cab in the studio anyhow. So right over here, this is where we're going to start our example for the parallel splits. We have a delay that's bypassed right now, and then we have this nice dynamic call. Please feel free to give me a shout out. Let me know if the audio levels are sounding weird or funky. But this is the sound we have right now. Not too bad. So if you hear that reverb, we're kind of swimming in reverb right now. And so for big, expensive chords, that's fine. That sounds good, right? And so I'm just going to like massage this tone and just kind of show you what we can do here when we're running in this serial path. And so currently, if I wanted to maybe crank up the distortion a little bit, anything like that, and I start to do some solo, sounds great on these big chords. But if I start doing some solo, we get a little, it may start to cross over into where, hey man, it sounds like your reverb's a little too much. Maybe you should turn that down. Ask me, and anyone I've ever played with, they know that I love reverb. And so if you're someone like myself who loves reverb and you always want to incorporate that into your sound, and maybe this is too much reverb for you, we could always drop this onto a parallel path. And so what's going to happen when you split your signals like this, and we're just running the straight up Y split, haven't made any adjustments, just literally grabbed that reverb block and dropped it down. If you're on your physical product, obviously you just press the action button with that block selected and push down. And so taking a look here, now when I hit these chords, what we're hearing the dry signal and the reverb signal, that wet signal, separated. And so we're getting that dry and that wet. And then it merges right here at the merge point. And at your merge point, you could choose, well, on the A side, I want it on the left or the right, and you can adjust its levels for, each, right? So this, for me, especially if you're using a higher gain application, I feel that running the reverb on a parallel path, it's a lot cleaner, it's a lot more articulate, but you still have all that goodness of that reverb. And if anything, you may think, well, it almost sounds like the volume of the reverb dropped a bit. And to our ears, yes, it did, because we literally took it out of the signal where we're not just going completely through the reverb. So we still have that beautiful reverb, and we're not swimming in it, right? Because now into that serial path, we're just kind of swimming in it. And so now that's how I set up my tones. That's how I like my reverb to sound on its own parallel path. But if you're going for that really wet and ambient sound, it's not too bad. So now let's add delay into the mix. So if I'm just running into this, this dotted eighth delay going into the same really wet reverb, I'm just going to drop the gain back a bit. And so now we have this dotted eighth thing going on. And so this is the kind of sound we have with this serial path. Too bad, but we're starting to lose some definition. And so what you may be used to if you're not using parallel splits is you start moving the mixes and the levels around on your delay or your reverb. And so I made a couple adjustments, and now we could hear the sound that we have. And so not a bad sound, but now let's hear what happens if we split the delay and the reverb. Now everything becomes a lot cleaner and a lot more articulate. And so what I can do is I could kind of raise the mix of the delay, and using this headroom parameter right here, since I'm kind of, since I have a lot of other frequencies and audio happening, that'll kind of help the delay stand out a bit more. And then I could even probably bring up the reverb a bit. Now let's hear that kind of sound that we've been working on. Bad sound. And I could even bring up that delay a little more if I wanted. And what we're ending up with here is a nice mix of wet ambient effect. All right. So that's the idea when we're working with wet effects, how you can split those up and get some really cool sounds. So what I'm just going to do now is to show another use for parallel splits. And so currently we've just been showing some delay and reverb, but when you're using a Y split, we could actually do cool things like dual amps. And so whenever you bring up a new amp in a situation like this, and I'm just going to get rid of this delay, and so let's take a look at the amp here. So when we're looking at these different amps, I have, this clean litigator going on, but maybe I want something a little heavier, whatever it may be, get kind of the best of both worlds here. What I could do is kind of get this JCM 800 modded model here. So currently we're at a Y split, and without adjusting the levels of that Marshall amp, we may have some weirdness. Now, of course, that is some big reverb there, so I'm just going to change that for the sake of the demonstration. We'll just drop that plate reverb. So not a bad sound already, but it could be adjusted. But just for the sake of of time here, we're really just focusing on the split. So currently this is a Y split, and what you can do is you can adjust the top path, which is A, or the bottom path, which is B. And I could say, well, I want the B path to be hard right and the A path to be hard left. And so what would happen is the Marshall would be on the left and then the litigator would be on the right. But for a situation like this, this is what you would do to, blend two amp sounds. What if we wanted to switch between the two amp sounds? Well, what we would do is we would just choose a split AB. And what you want to do here is you want to assign this parameter to a foot switch. And so working on HX Edit here, I could right click even split, and then I could just, find a foot switch. And there's foot switch 4. Looking down at my pedal board, if I turn it on, we are on the B path. So now we are just listening to the litigator, which is... And then we turn it off, and now we're on the A path, which is at JCM or 2204 modded. And so taking a look at the meters, I'm just going to give me a little bit of a volume bump. And so you could have these, best of both worlds here with a, with the hit of a A/B song. It's such a good sounding Marshall too, or JCM 800 or 2204, whatever you want to call it. So that's what we can get from that split AB. Now, if you've done this already several times, you may notice that the foot switch reads route 2. And so for me, what if I want to give that a different color or a different name instead of just route 2? Well, if we're on HX Edit, how we do this is we just go right over to the bypass and controller assign tab with the split point highlighted, and then we'll just select that assignment there, and the parameter is route 2 source foot switch 4. This is a good way to just quickly see what's controlling what. And so down here I see that it says route 2. Well, I'll just change this to A/B, enter, and then I could go to auto color, and instead of it just giving it that gray whitish color, I'll give it something that's really obvious that it's not an effect or anything else. So I'll choose pink. I like choosing really bright crazy colors that at a glance I may not think it's a delay. If I made this green, I'd probably think it was a delay. But that's the beauty of having all these options, because who knows what you're programming, right? So however you want to customize and set up your Helix. So that's pretty much the basics when it comes to serial versus parallel splits. Nothing too crazy, but just keep in mind that if you're wanting to use more than one amp, use a Y split and blend the two using the channel volume on each amp block parameter. Currently, we were looking at the use of an AB box, so you can switch from one amp to the next. And you could do all sorts of stuff once you create a parallel split. we can drop the merge point and then have two discrete outputs to go to two separate areas to give two separate sounds. We could even drop these two parallel splits into another parallel split down on path 2. So you can really get crazy. If you're ever curious about, diving in and learning more about splits, I recommend going into the set list of your Helix and scroll down to templates. And in templates, that's where you will find items like parallel spans, quick start, pretty much what we've covered so far. You can get, the idea and mess around and have some fun just going to the parallel spans here. And even super serial, which takes it to the next level. But that's a great way to just kind of see what we have going, what we were talking about today, and how you can have some fun with that. And let me just find where I was, and and here we are. So that's serial versus split. Let's take a look at split crossover. So as you can tell, when we were splitting and moving stuff around, we have these options to choose from. Now, whenever you create a split, the default split is a Y. And then obviously a little earlier, we changed it to an AB. So right now we're going to change it over to a crossover. Now I have a pre-baked preset here. And so really that's all that's going on is, we have a compressor, the LA2A in front of my amps and my sound, and then we have an LA2A at the end. And so not a huge change of settings here. But other than that, I have maybe a couple EQs just to kind of sculpt the overall sound. Now, what I have going on here is I have a Class A Vox sound on the top, and then I have a really low end boomy sounding Fender Deluxe pretty much. So taking a look here, what a crossover is going to do for us is, I'm going to turn it on right now so we could see the parameter. But currently it's set to a frequency, and that frequency right now is 6.5 kilohertz. So what's happening here with a crossover split, before the split, what's going to happen is anything above this frequency is going to pass through on to path A. And then anything below the set frequency is going to pass to path B. So what I have going on here is I have this really brittle, high-end, crunchy type of a Class A Vox sound. And below that, I have, like I was saying, a really, bassy and a lot of low-end Fender Twins. So if we listen to both of these at the same time, and I'm going to adjust my volume a bit, because when you turn on this split, you're going to lose a little bit of volume, and so that's why I've kind of compensated with a gain block here, and even going to the to the output and moving that stuff around as well, and just making some quick adjustments so it sounds good on the stream. So currently, this is how both amps would typically sound when you run both together, and so that's a little loud. Let's turn it down. So, just what you would expect mixing these two amps together. So a very in-your-face, just tone full of frequencies. So let's turn on this crossover now. And so now it cleaned up majorly. Because, a lot of what I'm playing, a lot of the low end is crossing over, and just a little bit of that high end frequency is passing through. Taking a quick look here, this is our our frequency spectrum. So I'm currently setting this at 6.5 kilohertz right here. We're looking at right around here in the presence area. So that means everything below this frequency, which is all this stuff right here, the bass, the mid-range, is passing through path B right here, which is our Fender. And then obviously everything from the presence and higher is crossing over into the Vox. So if you really think about it, there's only a little bit of sizzle hitting that amp, and so you end up without having a lot of signal passing through this block, and you end up with a nice you end up with a very, very nice sound. Thanks, Tony. I appreciate it. Got a sad face. Did we make anyone sad today? Oh, So yeah, cool tone. Maybe Tony, you could use that, in your tone adventures. So that's pretty much what we're getting here with this crossover. This is one example I was able to, find and tweak and move around. But honestly, this is a great sounding tone. I'm sure other users out there have used crossovers in different ways other than this. Me personally, I haven't really dove into crossovers that much, as of recently though, and they're a lot of fun. It's been kind of an uncharted territory for me because I'm just your straight up Marshall with an overdrive and some reverb, right? Very basic sounds on my end, and so this has been a lot of fun messing around and having fun with the crossover. So keep that in mind when you're building your sounds. You could really sculpt your tone using this. And if this is a tone you're looking at, just give me a shout out and we'll send it your way. So that's what we have with the crossover. Now I'm going to take us over into a split dynamic. So a split dynamic is very similar to a split crossover. The only difference here is when we're dealing with the split crossover, the crossover deals with the frequency. So like I said, the lower frequency passes on the B path and the higher frequency passes on the A path. Well, for this instance, this is a lot like an A-B box and crossover mixed together. So what happens here with the dynamic is that when you are playing your guitar, if you are below the set threshold, you will only pass through the A path. If you are above the set threshold, you will pass through the B path. So it's very similar to like an A-B-Y box in a way, because once you pass the set threshold, your signal is going to pass through the B path and the A path simultaneously and hit whatever you have happening after your tone. So what I have here is a very basic tone. We're just dealing with a like a clean Fender, and then we see that LA2A at the end again, and finally just finishing it off with some plate reverb. Now right here I have a Minotaur cranked up, because what I'm going for here is the idea of playing something clean, nice and soft, and then once I dig into the guitar, that crossover is going to happen, or that dynamic split's going to happen, and now I'm going to pass through the overdrive at the same time. And so just a quick little example here. This is a cool way where maybe if you don't want to worry about pressing a stomp box on and off, this could be something really cool to get that across. But this is one example I was able to come up with. And I'm sure many of you could come up with something even better. But here's an idea of what you can do with a split dynamic. So let's just get a quick idea on our levels. So for example, if we were doing something like you see, so you could have a lot of fun with that. And of course, you could always have just, put this on the same serial path, assign it to a foot switch and do it that way. But the option is there to do an idea like this, and who knows what you can, the sky's the limit on the kind of effects you can put here. You could do different amp models and have two separate tones entirely. You could put cool modulations and even filters and stuff. Maybe when you push and dig into the tone, you get an auto wah, and then when you play normal, you don't get that. Maybe something cool if you're looking to get really crazy reverbs or delays or other ambient effects on a really distorted sound. So when you really dig into it, then it, kind of pops up, and, those little bits of effect shine through. But in closing, that's the split options. Really, nothing too crazy. Like I said, this is me kind of finishing up the going back to basics. I think after this we'll start getting into finding more ideas and subjects to go a little deeper, and maybe bring back some artist tone tutorials as well. So I hope this definitely helped out. You get a good idea on what you can do here. And if you're a current Helix user, or maybe you're interested in looking into purchasing a Helix yourself, and you just want to know more, regardless of where you're at, when it comes to owning or using a Helix, or your experience level. Keep in mind, us product specialists are offering free lessons on Skype or Zoom. Head over to line6.com/events, and you'll be able to get yourself a lesson with myself or Tony. They're free. I don't know if they'll always be free, but they are for sure for now. But check out line6.com/events, and get yourself a 45-minute session with one of us, and anything you need from Helix, Pod Go, any HX family modeler at all, and we'll be happy to help out. So thank you so much, guys. That was going over splits and serial versus parallel splits, and hope you guys had a good one. Thank you so much for joining me, and we will see you at the next lesson. I think we have Tony up next. I'm not too sure, but check back soon next week at Thursday, 11 a.m. Pacific time. Thanks again, guys, and here's the link just in case.